Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 10 4 key game picks. Before we talk about Week number 10, what happened in Week number 9 is we're starting to get a little bit of some sense now of what NFL teams now are starting to become pretenders, and a lot of teams that are starting to be competitive to possibly be playoff contenders, and those that were playoff teams are basically now in serious danger now of missing the playoffs. Teams like the Rams and the Packers, both teams lost last Sunday. They were playoff teams a year ago, and now they are in extreme danger right now of missing the postseason. And by looks of it, it wouldn't surprise me if the Rams and the Packers are out. Because if you look at the current, between those two teams, the Packers currently right now are in the worst shape right now because the Vikings are still have a huge advantage, basically now you could say a 4-game lead over them, and it doesn't look like the Vikings are going to let up. They're playing much better than anticipated, and given the fact that their offense has really clicked all season long, even though they are still struggling a bit on defense, but still, their offense has shown up more than they have in recent years. The Rams, obviously, their offense is a mess. Their offensive line can't protect Stafford. Their defense can't even stop the run. I should know better because it sounds like the team that's playing with them in SoFi, the Chargers, they can't even stop the run themselves. And I look at teams now. I mean, right now the biggest story right now going into week number 10 is obviously the injury to Josh Allen and his elbow and arm. Obviously he got hurt on one of the final plays of the game between the Jets and the Bills, and obviously you got to get the Jets some credit. They really did a good job of holding the Bills' offense at bay. And now I'm starting to wonder, did people figure out the Bills' vulnerabilities? Not only on offense, but maybe somewhat on defense as well, because the defense did struggle a lot in that game against the Jets. And it does ring a lot of eyebrows right now on who's really the best team in the NFL. You can argue the Eagles, you can argue the Chiefs. You would think that a team that had high expectations as the Bills do, and now they're just starting to basically fall off the radar. Now, obviously, right now, there's no status if I had to take a guess, I don't think Josh Allen will be playing this week. They're probably going to take it easy with him because look, I don't really have much information right now on what's going on with Josh Allen and the Bills because the Bills need Josh Allen because he's the heart and soul of that offense. Let's be real. I would go on and what else happened in week number 9, but we got to get to my picks here. My video's already late, and I apologize for that. I was supposed to get the video done yesterday, and I did on Tuesday, but obviously, a lot of us probably, you can all admit it, we were watching, it was election night, and we were all trying to figure out what's going on, who's going to run Congress, and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, let's get in now to week number 10. All right, let's begin with key game number 1. It is the Seattle Seahawks versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Point of note to this game that this game is the first game of Sunday's slate because this game is going to be played in Munich, Germany, which is really the NFL is trying to take this game more global. So this is Germany's first NFL game since probably NFL Europe, which is defunct and it's dead. It's been dead now for over 20 years. A real NFL game. Now, going into this football game for the Seahawks, they've really been on a roll. They have steamrolled a lot of the NFC West opponents lately. They haven't played the Rams yet, which I'm pretty certain, or as much as the 49ers, but I'm pretty certain that the Seahawks will probably play very good against them. Now, Geno Smith went 26-34, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception in a big victory against the Cardinals last week. Now, Tom Brady had to come from behind late in the game as the Tampa Bay offense really struggled a lot in that game against the Rams. He went 36-58, 280 yards, 1 touchdown, and luckily he didn't have a turnover in that game. The Buccaneers are 2.5-point favorite. That number's probably going to go to 2, maybe 1.5. A lot of things to consider right now with this Tampa Bay offense. Have they finally clicked? They didn't really seem like they clicked all of last week because it was really a low-scoring game they had against the Rams last week. And given how the Seahawks are playing very, very tough right now, you got to wonder, can Tampa Bay find a way to get through that Seattle defense because they've been playing very good lately. They're currently in first place in the NFC West, and they're a team to be reckoned with, and Pete Carroll has done a fantastic job with the Seahawks. A lot of it's going to determine right now, can Tampa Bay's defense stop the Seahawks offense? They struggled a lot they did hold the Rams to 7 points, so that does show some sort of positive note on that. And for the sake of argument, can the Buccaneers really get to Geno Smith? The thing with Seattle's defense, though, it's got to be the same thing. Can they get to Tom Brady? This game right now, you could say this is a lean towards the Seattle Seahawks, but I don't know. Sooner or later, the Seahawks have got to have a bad game, and it's obviously this is on a neutral site, and it's very hard to say how this game is going to turn out. I mean, it might be another low-scoring affair for the Buccaneers, but something tells me that offense is ready to finally get it together. I know they probably still need another wide receiver, and I know they're dealing with some injuries here. It's a tough pick. I'll be honest with you. A lot of it has to determine is basically can the teams limit the turnovers, and can they score points here? This is a tough pick, but I'm gonna go with the Buccaneers. Their offense has got to click sooner or later, despite the fact I know the talent around Tom Brady isn't as good as it's been in years. But something has got to click for this Tampa Bay offense here. And I'm going to say, for the sake of argument, I will give them the benefit of a doubt. I think the Buccaneers will start to get on a groove. They're in a much winnable division than probably anybody else in the NFL. It's a tough one here. I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. I think it's going to be a very close game. Probably a 17-14 type of game. I think it'll be more scoring in this game than it will be last week against the Rams for the Buccaneers. It's a tough one here. I think the game will go back and forth, but I think it's going to be low scoring. I think it's going to be the Buccaneers barely pulling it out on a field goal. It's a tough one here. Take this with a grain of salt and treat it with caution on this pick here. Tampa Bay minus 2.5 over the Seahawks. Key game number 2. The Dallas Cowboys versus the Green Bay Packers. It's do or die right now for the Packers. And you could say last week, I thought last week they would have beaten the Lions, and yet they lost 15-9. And you got to wonder if Aaron Rodgers finally can start taking some sort of responsibility for some bad throws he made. Because he had 3 interceptions last week against the Lions. I mean, you look at his stats, 23 of 43, 291 yards, 1 touchdown, and the 3 interceptions. You're going up against a Cowboy team that is definitely starting to get on a groove. And obviously, you don't think that Mike McCarthy's licking his chops right now, wanting to whoop his former team. Now, Dak Prescott last week, and basically they got into a football game with the Bears last week. Prescott 21 of 27, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. If Green Bay has any sort of hope right now, obviously their wide receivers right now, they're already stretched thin at wide receivers, and they barely have any talent around other than maybe Lazard. It is going to be a tough game for the Packers. I mean, I never thought of the many years of talking about football and Aaron Rodgers and all this great talent or some sort of genius plays he's had with the Packers that I never thought I would have a little bit of sort of confidence to go against them. And because the Cowboys are a 5-point favorite in this one here, and I think that's about right. I think the odds makers got this right on this one here. The Packers are missing a ton. They're missing wide receivers. They have no talent. They barely have any veterans on that team. It's a young football team, and Aaron Rodgers is basically one of the few veterans left on that team. And when you're playing against a Cowboy defense that's really within the top 15 in the NFL, you're asking a lot out of Aaron Rodgers to beat that defense here. Somehow, some way, I could see this being sort of a football game. This game will be close for a little bit, but I think towards the end, like the fourth quarter, I think the Cowboys pull away in this one here. And the way the Cowboys offense is playing, they're really playing on a roll. They're on a mission. And you don't think that Mike McCarthy is going to take a lot of pride and joy in beating Aaron Rodgers in this one here. And and I think he might get the victory here. I'm going to go with the Cowboys here. I think the Packers season is done after this one here. They're going to be too far. They're going to be too far behind in order to have any sort of hope to even get a wild card spot. This is kind of an easy pick here. I'm going to go with the Cowboys here. Cowboys -5 over the Packers. Key game number 3. This game sort of matters to me as a fan of this team, and I think you know what I'm going with here. Key game number 3, the Chargers versus the 49ers. 49ers a minus. They're favored by 7. And I would say that's about right. The Chargers really struggled last week against the Falcons. The defense was able to make plays and force some turnovers on it, but really right now, the problem for the Chargers is really that offensive line. They just can't protect Herbert. Austin Eckler, fortunate enough to run the ball more effectively than he had towards the beginning of the season. Justin Herbert was 30 of 43, 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interceptions, in a barely squeaked out a victory against the Falcons. Now, the 49ers were on their bye last week, and Jimmy Garoppolo's stats back in week number 8, 21 of 25, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. But obviously they lost the Kansas City Chiefs in that game. I'm going to make this short and sweet right now for the chart, talking about this football game. The Chargers have to play more flawless in this football game. The 49ers defense is not a joke. But you could say the same about the Chargers. Somehow, some way, does this become a football game? It might for the first half. This is just my prediction. This might be a football game in the first half, but when it comes down to the second half, if the Chargers can't protect Herbert and they don't get that running game going, you're asking a lot of the Chargers defense to bail them out. And given that the 49ers their offense is just a little bit better than the Chargers are, defense-wise, they're almost evenly matched. I hate to go against the Chargers in this one here because their defense really, I thought it was going to be dominant, but obviously they have some huge problems in the secondary. And I think, to me, the 49ers offense will pull away in the fourth quarter. I think this will be a game towards the fourth quarter, but I think the 49ers are going to pull away in this one here. I have to pick the 49ers here. I got to be realistic here. The Chargers really have to play flawlessly in this game to have a chance at an upset. But I just don't see it happening in this game, and that's not going to build any confidence right now because, more than likely they're not going to have Keenan Allen for this game either, which they badly need him, and hopefully he might be ready for the game against Kansas City, which is next week. But I just think the 49ers have a bit of the better offense here. I think it'll be close, but the 49ers pull away in the fourth quarter. You got to go with the 49ers here. I think the 49ers will beat the Chargers here. 49ers -7 over the Chargers. And finally, key game number 4, it is the Minnesota Vikings versus the Buffalo Bills. Kirk Cousins, 22 of 40, 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a come-from-behind victory against the Washington Commanders. They really struggled in that game last week against the Commanders. And it does bring up a lot of question marks going into this game against the Bills. Now, a lot of question marks right now because what I just said right now. Josh Allen's probably not going to play in this game, and you're going to have to force to go with Case Keenum in this one. But I think the Buffalo Bills defense. Look, if the Vikings had a hard time against the Commanders last week when they really should have blown them out, and they didn't. They barely won by a touchdown. You got to feel good if you're the Bills defense, even though I know they lost against the Jets last week. But this is probably a game they're probably going to take a lot more seriously. I think the defense will be the difference in this one here. This will be a very close game. There's no way this game's a blowout. Obviously because of the fact that that Josh Allen's not going to play in this game. And it's going to determine who limits the turnovers, who controls the ball last, and who scores. This game's a tough one here. The Bills are favored by 7.5. It'll probably go down to 7, 6.5, maybe 6. It's a tough one here. Minnesota's offense really has to find a way to break through that Bills defense. It's going to be a tough challenge. I think, to me, the Bills defense is going to make the difference in this one here. I'm going to go with the Bills by a field goal. I think it's going to be by 3 points. It's going to be a really, really interesting game here. Should be a good one in Buffalo. I will pick the Bills in this one here. I think the Bills will bounce back here, even without Josh Allen. I think the defense is going to be the difference in this game here. I'm going to pick the Bills over the Vikings. All right, everybody, that wraps up my 4 key game picks for week number 10. For all my week 10 picks, please check the description below. I'll talk to you guys next week when I make my picks for week number 11. Take care and enjoy your football weekend.